Right, so now I'm with my pal Alvin, and he's a jet. I didn't say that before, but he's a jet. And now I know tons of people have been asking me questions about how to get the license in Japan for a non-Canadian, because my videos before were about me being Canadian and it was easy. I just switched my license and I was good to go. But for Alvin, it was a nightmare. So for all of you guys that are American, South African, or any other countries thinking about biking, here is what you have to do. So thank you, Alvin, for your time. What do you have to do to get your bike license in Japan?
Okay, there are two options. You can. Okay, let's start with the most popular one. If you want to bike in Japan, then usually you have biked before, so you usually would have a bike license in your respective home country. You can get this license translated, which is just a document that essentially outlines the particulars of the license in your given country, like what are the restrictions and what are stuff like weight limits, and if you can drive a certain size of engine and stuff like that. So you can get your license translated in Japan, and then you take this translated document to the, I suppose, what would be called the Department of Transport in Japan. Then they will ask you a whole lot of questions about how you managed to get the license in your home country. This is then followed by another questionnaire in Japanese, which would probably be translated by the time somebody is coming now, because I know in July they started with a questionnaire in English for people who wants to get a bike license. After completing the questionnaire, you have to drive around a course on a bike, and then if you do everything correctly, you go and you do the second part of the thing, which is getting your documents processed. But then even if you have passed the test, you still don't have the license until you go to driving school for a mandatory 2 hours, which you have to pay for in addition to the licensing and all the other stuff. After you're at a driving school, you have to take documents that they will give you back to the Department of Transportation. You have to hand it over, and then they will process your actual license card. Now that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to go to driving school off the cuff, do a whole driving school course, and get the license from them. And it's really simple. However, it's extremely expensive. So it's in the range of about 15 man. So that's 150,000 yen. What is that in dollars? It's like 1,500 US.
1,700.
It doesn't really matter because you're not going to be using US dollars or whatever it is you came over here with. So just start living in yen. Anyway, so yeah, so it's about 1,000. I mean, it's 150,000 yen to enroll at a driving school and do your license through there. What I did is my license card from South Africa expired about 6 months after I arrived here, so I had to do my car license in quite a hurry. But I thought, okay, fine, just forget about the bike for now. Just get the car license, get some transportation license going. And then when I decided to do the bike license, I had no documents to translate, or I had nothing to hand over or anything. So what I did is I simply went to the Department of Transportation. I told them, listen, this is what I want to do. This is my story. Can I just make an appointment? And can I just take the test? Is it cool if I just take the test? And somehow they said, yeah, it's cool. You can just come in, make an appointment, do the test, and then if you pass, all the other conditions are valid still. You have to do the 2 hours mandatory and blah, 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 blah. However, in Japan there are, I think it's 4 classes, four or 3 classes, size classes. There's a thing called an Ogata license, which is an open class or free class. And this allows you to do any kind of bike, ride any kind of bike, any size, with an infinite engine size. So you can drive whatever you want to drive. Then there is the more popular one, which is the Chugata license, which is a bike license that is limited to 400cc and not more, but everything underneath. And then there is a third one, which is, I think, limited to 125 or something. And then there's a fourth one I heard of, which just limits you to 50cc. But it's useless to go. It's useless to go for that one, because if you have a driver's license, then you are allowed the use of a 50cc scooter or bike under the jurisdiction of your car driving license. So you will probably be going for a chugata license, chugata menkyo, and then the process is really simple. Go to the Department of Transportation, apply, do their test, do an eye test. They're going to do an eye test, and then you have to listen to a lecture where I suppose he's a retired cop, where the guy is going to tell you how he wants you to drive around the closed course. And listen very carefully, but there's going to be a lot of things that he doesn't tell you. For instance, the most important one is to maintain not more than a 1 meter distance from the left side of the road at all times. Even if you're on a double lane road and you're in the center lane, you have to maintain at least 1 meter from the center of the road then on your left hand side. And this is not something they will tell you, and so you're gonna have to find it out through research like this, and then obviously try and pass your license. In smaller towns, I've heard that it's much easier to get your license. The guys seem to be more lenient for mistakes and things. Just to give you an example, I heard that you get an instant fail if somehow you have to stop the bike. If there's a task where you have to stop the bike quickly, like an emergency stop, and you lock the wheels or something, then it's an instant fail. But what happened to me was there's a part on the course where you have to get up to 40 kilometers an hour and then stop within a given distance. And this was the third time that I had done the test, and I was really nervous, and it was right at the end of the test. And I came into the gates, and I was on the back brake a little too much, and the wheel locked up, and the engine died, and I thought, okay, it's done, I'm finished, I might as well just go back home, kind of thing, reapply, redo everything. And then the guy was driving in the car, and because he's driving next to you in a car, and he's just looking for mistakes and things, and he was just kind of waiting for me to start up again and drive on. So I was really happy that he I don't know if he didn't notice or what the story was, but either way, I got the license that day. So yeah, there's some things to be careful of. Two things that are most difficult in the test when you do your actual driving test is a thing called an iponbashi, which loosely translates to single bridge or narrow bridge, and it's a metal bridge about this wide, and it's about that high off the ground, and you have to go onto the bridge with a bike and stay on the bridge as long as possible and cover the distance in more than 30 seconds. So it's about a 10 meter bridge, and you have to drive really, really, really slow and not fall off the side. So it's really difficult because you have to kind of maintain the bike, and you got to handle control and stuff, so it's kind of tricky. And then after the iponbashi, directly after iponbashi on every course in Japan is the slalom course, which is just obviously a set of cones, and you've got to weave through them under a specified time. I think you have to go through under 10 seconds or something. And those two are the most difficult things to do in terms of kana or skill that you have to prove to the examiner once you do your test. The rest of the things are just common sense stuff, like stop at the red light and turn like this and do your checks and indicate early and do this and do that, blah blah blah. It's just normal, like driving around things, although it does get a little bit confusing because they tell you on the test day that okay, we want you to drive here and then turn left there and then go right here and go around the circle and do this and do this and do this and do this. So there's a lot of instructions, directions that you need to remember before you actually get on the bike. So then there's one last thing to mention. Once you do get your license, regardless of the class, open class or restricted or whatever, then there is a 1 year waiting period before you can take a passenger. If you do take a passenger before this 1 year is up, and it's actually written on the back of your license when you were qualified to drive a bike, if you do take a passenger before this 1 year period expires and you do get pulled over by the cops, then you can get a fine of up to 100,000 yen or 2 months in prison. For some reason, I don't know why, but yeah. But yeah, I think the prison situation is only in like extreme situations. So they're probably going to just slap you with a fine if they pull you over, but usually they don't really care about that. Yeah, I guess that's all I can think of now.